Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I am your host, Kevin. I at Falcoholic Kevin, here with Tre'Shon Diaz at Tre'Shon on the Twitters to get into the topic du jour after week one, which is not a happy conversation, not the conversation I wanted to have the Monday after week one, but the topic, and it's all around the national media. It's not just us overreacting. I woke up this morning and saw like 15 people tweeting about it, so I was like, okay, probably not just me being a hater. How concerned should the Falcons be, and us as a result, about Kirk Cousins? Because it was an alarming game. It was an alarming game plan, and that of course leads to some questions about Zac Robinson, the new offensive coordinator, that we're going to get to as well. But before we do, want to check in with Tre'Shon. Tre'Shon, tough game. How we doing on Monday?
You know, we woke up today, so we're always feeling good about that. And it is what it is. Unfortunately, this has become a familiar feeling. This is a familiar place to be at on a Monday as a Falcons fan. And yeah, like you said, we got a lot of different things to talk about. So I'm just excited to get into that.
Yeah, no shortage of topics, just not the ones you want to talk about. But yeah, guys, we're going to talk about, we've had a chance to look over the game a little bit more, digest it a little bit more, and get into some of the worrying things that we saw about Kirk Cousins, some of the worrying things we saw about the game plan and what Zac Robinson was implementing, and sort of go over that stuff and try to, there's been a lot of takes out there. Some of them started by me, many not started by me or Tre'Shon. Don't blame us for everything. But there's a lot of takes. We're gonna try to decipher and sift through and see what is meaningful and what's not as meaningful. But a lot to get to today. Before we dive in, I want to bring you guys a real quick word from our sponsor. It's BetOnline. Folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. The NFL is in full swing. Don't recommend betting on the Falcons until we figure this whole Kirk Cousins thing out. But there's 31 other teams you can bet on. You could bet against the Falcons if you're just a real glutton for punishment. That I've always liked that, like especially like if you pick against the Falcons, you're happy to be wrong. The Falcons win, and if the Falcons lose, you get your pick right. So it's a win-win. But up to you guys what you want to do with that information. But no matter what you want to do, BetOnline's got every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think you know your stuff, BetOnline's got a new $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week contest going on. They've got weekly prizes and a chance at your share of that $200K. And when the game's over, you can head on over to BetOnline's a new online casino, get in on that game of online blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of their over 150 slots games. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head to that website today, BetOnline, to get in on the action, and just make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. I know they've always got some kind of welcome bonus for you if you use that code, so make sure to check that out. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Tre'Shon. Well, I'm glad, looking at your tweets today, like, I'm glad I'm not the only, like, I felt like a huge hater after the game. I was like, man, did I really just, like, watch this? Like, is this real? Like, am I just, like, upset? Because I'm known for being a little hot-headed on game days. I was trying to cut down a little bit more on that this year. No directly insulting the quarterback. That I'm going to try to move away from that going forward. But I was not the only one that came away with the take of, like, man, there looks to be some kind of problem with Kirk Cousins. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but, I think we saw some disturbing lack of velocity on some of the outside throws. We saw maybe the least amount of pocket movement ever for a quarterback in an entire NFL game. And we saw a game plan that looked like completely deliberately designed to not ask him to move at all, even to execute play action, which is a staple of this type of offense that you would expect to see. So where do you want to start? There's a lot to get to here.
Yeah, let's just start with Kirk. I think we can just get that out of the way. And I think you and I both have similar feelings about the things that Kirk can control and then the things that are outside of his control and that then contributed to the game that he had. And, like you said, so just to start off, on the very first drive, we saw Kirk make a questionable decision, putting the ball in harm's way. And there's not really any, you go back and look at it, pressure or rhyme or reason. It was just kind of a bad decision, and you just chalk that up to rust. And on most of Kirk's bad throws, and we'll just classify them as turnover worthy plays. He was typically left clean, and it was really more about him making a bad decision than it was about anything else affecting him. So, when we talk about seeing his, rigidness and kind of just seeing the overall comfort level not really looking there, those are the kinds of things where it's like, all right, he's working back. Could this be something that, could have been mitigated with some playtime earlier? Who knows? We're never going to get the answer to that question at this point. We should kind of just move on from it because it is what it is at this point. And yeah, I think that when we look at what Kirk was asked to do, when kept clean yesterday, it was disappointing to see how he operated, was not making the best decisions, and just overall looked very sluggish. And we're obviously going to get into it, but there's a couple of things that transpired to where there's not really much Kirk can do. Like you said, we're running, an offense. We ran out of pistol 52% of the time yesterday, and we did not run play action off of it once. If you if you ask anybody who lives and dies by the pistol set, that would sound like insanity to them. The entire point of that offense is that you're essentially bringing the shotgun and the I formation and meeting it in the middle and giving yourself a unique opportunity to run a different kind of play action offense, one that should actually help Kirk because he's not actually having to take those initial steps that you normally would from under center. And not seeing any play action off of that, seeing the predictability of, hey, they're in pistol, it's going to be a run play. It was a run play 81% of the time. Hey, they're in shotgun, it's going to be a pass play. It was a pass play 100% of the time yesterday. And if you have a quarterback who you don't want the defense to tee off on, then you are going to need to be a little bit less predictable. And I think the play of the day that showcased just how predictable the offense got for me was the 2nd and 11, fourth quarter, backed up against your own end zone screen pass call. You can look at the alignment and you can say, okay, well, it looks like they have the numbers on the outside. It looks like this, it looks like that. But up until that point, the Steelers defense knew two things. If they're in shotgun, it's a pass. If they're in pistol or anything else, it's a run. They came out spread. Pitts wasn't even lined up to chip. You're just telling the defense, this is a screen. This is a screen. We're not asking TJ Watt, or we're not asking Caleb McGarry to hold TJ Watt down for longer than 2 seconds while our end zone is right behind us. We're immediately throwing this left or right. And what do the defensive ends do? They don't even go for the quarterback. They both shoot outward to get contained, and the ball comes right to them. So, Kirk didn't get any favors from his OC yesterday, who may have been trying to make life easier, but ended up actually making it much more difficult.
Yeah, I think that is a huge takeaway. And it's, there were some little mechanical things that I saw, and I'm not like a quarterback expert, but, I know, I apologize, I forget who mentioned it, but Kirk pretty much has played most of his career with his feet left foot back. That's his typical stance. That's pretty much what he's always done. And when you're a 35-year-old quarterback, you're not trying to change someone's mechanics. Like, especially when you're as clean mechanically as Kirk Cousins is, that's one of his best things. Is he's a machine. He knows exactly what to do. He also doesn't play out of pistol really ever. And like, I get if he's hurt, you don't want him lining up under center, but that goes back to more questions that I'm sure we'll continue to ask. But the Falcons had him play even-footed, which he's never done before, or if he has, it's been very limited. So not only are you having him play out of a formation that he's not familiar with, you're also having him play with mechanics that he's not familiar with. And if he's already hobbled, I can't see any good reason to have him set his feet like that. Like, I don't know why you would be coaching him to change his mechanics in his age 35, age 36 season. I don't think maybe a quarterback or a scheme expert could tell me a reason why the even foot in this would make more sense than left foot back. To me, if he's only taking 3 to 5 step drops, I can't see how that would make a significant difference. But I I'm not the one necessarily to ask about those minute details, but I don't understand the thought process behind changing his mechanics going into this game. Like, when he's already hobbled, when he's already running a new system with new receivers, why are we asking Kirk to change his footwork? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Like you said, this one's really for the experts. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with cutting down, the footwork and some of those pistol sets. If it helps him hit his first step properly or anything like that. Either way, like you said, you need to be able to. You have to build this offense around Kirk. That's what you've decided to do by signing him and by willing to take a risk on his Achilles. And so if your answer to building it around him is, well, we just won't ask him to do half of the things you're supposed to do to make this effective, then you're doing nobody any favors here. And it was really weird because when I went back and watched the first quarter specifically and focused on the run plays, I mean, this is how bad the Falcons have got me right now. I'm watching Kirk to see if he's finishing out his progressions on the handoffs, and he is, and it looked fine. Did it look like he was, is it uber athletic? Whatever. No, he's Kirk Cousins, but it looked like okay, he's going through the motion, he's going through his handoff progression, and he's rolling out. It looks like it's at a decent speed. It looks like it's okay, but they never built anything off of that, and then almost it seemed around the second quarter, maybe it was after the second half, it seemed like he wasn't asked to do even that anymore. And granted, they were throwing the ball a lot more in the second half, but it almost seemed like he even stopped being asked to go through the progression of his handoff and finish and everything like that. And so that kind of leads us to the big question of the day, which is Kirk Cousins not healthy? And then it's kind of a situation that the Falcons have not necessarily been extremely transparent on, or is Kirk healthy? This is his new normal. Or the third option, Zac Robinson overthought this whole process and just decided that I don't want Kirk to do anything. It's the first game. I'm just going to be extremely conservative with how we use him because, I'm looking at this over the course of the entire year. I don't want to ask him to do too much in his first game back.
Yeah.
We don't know because he wasn't asked to do certain things. So we're extrapolating, a lot of information and we're making the best educated guesses we can. It's like, okay, well, he probably wasn't asked because he couldn't, but knowing that we have a first time OC, seeing how predictable the play calling got, seeing how clunky and off schedule the offense looked at times, it's hard to just continuously attribute everything to, well, Kirk doesn't look good. Kirk's not healthy. Kirk's not this.
Yeah, it's certainly part of it. I mean, I think it's one of those things that you can't separate one from the other. Like, I can't imagine that this staff created this game plan like in some kind of vacuum where they like weren't aware of Kirk Cousins' limitations. Like, I think this whole game plan originated from, I don't know that we can ask Kirk to do X, Y, and Z. And like the other half of it is that they didn't even like call deep routes. Like, I mean, I like it was like, are you serious? Like, we're not even gonna like have guys run clear outs. Like, I mean, it was like they weren't having routes past like 20 yards. Like, I mean, it like I just like and like we don't know the answer to this, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions about it when media availability happens. So shout out to those guys going into the Lions Den to really get after it. But like Kirk looked very stiff. I mean, it's his first game back from Achilles. It could be that he's just rusty as hell. Kirk wanted to play in the preseason, and I think he was right to ask to play in the preseason because he hasn't played football in almost a year at this point. So there was always going to be rust if they weren't going to let him play in the preseason. The pessimist in me thinks they didn't let him play in the preseason because they didn't want anyone to see where he was in his recovery. And like Raheem didn't play any starters, so this wasn't just about Kirk, but like I just, and this is just my like totally pessimistic view of the whole situation. No fans at training camp, extremely limited recording. Kirk Cousins, and they come out with this extremely limited offense where it looks like actually Kirk's maybe not healthy. It's just like, I don't know. Am I like crazy for suggesting like this? They just tried their best to hide this from everyone, and to me, it feels like the stupidest thing in the world to do because the Steelers figured it out within 2 quarters. Like you did all this song and dance, and like yes, they were doing construction, yes, all this stuff. It's not like they were completely fabricating this whole thing to keep fans away. But I'm just saying, you add all these things together, and then you come out with this like kindergarten offense essentially, and Kirk is like obviously not 100%, and it's like you did all of this song and dance to try to fool the Steelers for 2 quarters. I mean, I guess it worked for 2 quarters, so I mean, maybe it doesn't seem worth it to me personally.
I mean, you're also just coming off of the season you're also coming off of 2023, an off season where everybody was convinced that they were hiding the quarterback. And so
they're not beating the allegations, Trish.
Yeah, this isn't really what you wanted to see because, this was supposed to be different. This is like, we know for sure he's healthy, all these other things. And, it just turns out that, like always, we know far, far less than we think we do heading into week 1. And to your point, I think when we look back at this game, we're definitely going to be disappointed because there were plenty of opportunities to take advantage of this Steelers defense. And we saw a Kirk go 7 for 7, touchdown. He even rolled out for the touchdown throw to Pitts. Yeah, nobody was around him, but he was still able to do it. And after that, it really looked like Zac Robinson was like, all right, that is the best I got. So hopefully Chris Boswell doesn't go out there and nail 5 50-yard field goals to seal this game for the Steelers, and we could just walk out of here because I'm all out of tricks like that in the 4th and 1 play, which was beautiful.
Perfect. Yep.
Loved it. But your best play of the day can't be a 10-yard gain.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, it like, again, it's like, I think we saw flashes of clever play calling from Zac Robinson. Like you said, the 4th and 1, I think that was better than like any 4th and 1 Arthur Smith ran in his entire career here in Atlanta. And like that tight end flood was the perfect call for that situation. I mean, it was the perfect call against that defense, and it led to Kyle Pitts just completely wide open. But like you can't just have 2 plays. One of them was a touchdown play, so great. But yeah, I mean, 10 points. It is against the Steelers defense. Maybe the worst, if not one of the worst opponents for an immobile quarterback in his first game back in the NFL. We knew that was going to be an issue. I didn't think it was going to be so much of an issue that the offense wouldn't be able to do a damn thing. I didn't think they would score like 30, but it felt like the whole game changed after that Ross Dwelly messed up motion fumble. Like, because they were marching, they were at the Pittsburgh 30. It felt like they were about to put another score on the board and start taking control of this game. And as soon as that Dwelly fumble happened, the fans went silent. The stadium was dead, and it never woke up again after that. And the Steelers took over at that point. So, like, is momentum real? I don't know, but it was real there because after that, the fans quit, and I don't blame them. Like, you guys have suffered enough. Trust me. I'm not pointing any fingers with that, but it's just another symptom of like this team is not ready to play. The offense was incredibly disjointed. You mentioned all the motion problems. They look like a team that hadn't played together ever, which is exactly what they were. They've never played together. So, and the staff can say they want to protect people from injury all they want, but like this is the NFL. You have 17 games. Can you really like put everyone in bubble wrap and sacrifice games, like sacrifice wins to like warm-ups essentially, like that? Because that's what you're risking. And I don't know. Like I firmly disagree with the idea that the preseason's just for evaluation. It's practice. Like it's one of the practice tools at your disposal. And like I think it's one thing if like Kirk Cousins played all last season with this team and it's like, okay, he doesn't really need a tune-up. It's fine. Like he's never played with these players before, ever. And he hasn't even taken live snaps since last, October? So like, I just think that I don't know if the right word is hubris or, whatever it is. Maybe just they have their take on how the preseason should go and we have ours, but I think and there's still people out there like, oh, the preseason doesn't matter. It matters. It does matter. It's just, how much does it matter? It probably depends on the team and the situation and all that. But I think there's no question that this team was not ready to play. The offense was not ready to play. And I don't know that another week of practice is going to get them there.
Yeah. And I mean, you said it earlier, but all that really matters was, what did Kirk Cousins think about preseason this year? And he thought he needed it. Raheem's calling the shots at the end of the day, but we know one thing for sure. The preseason mattered to Kirk Cousins this year, and he had a different plan in mind for himself versus the one the team had. And, we got the result that we got. And you've mentioned it, but the Ross Dwellery snap fumble, we're probably lucky that was the only one of the day, because going back through and looking at this film, there are multiple times where Kirk is having to reset the cue to get the motion man going, where the motion man actually lined up on the wrong side of the formation, then had to motion over and then was motioned back. And it's not being done in the way of like, oh, it's McVay. Look, he's running inside real quick. And like, no, this is a full having to reset and start over and do the motion. So it's clear that it wasn't just Kirk. It was everybody did not feel comfortable. The timing was off and the mistakes started to add up from it. And I mean, you mentioned it already with just not seeing any of the deep shots being taken, but it really was disappointing to see the lack of involvement again from the high investment receiving options. Raymond McLeod played an amazing game yesterday, and he did what he was supposed to do when his number is called on, and that's make a play. And he made a lot of them, and he had 46 yards on the touchdown drive individually. So he's obviously a very important part of this offense, but he cannot be getting 5 more targets than Drake London. He cannot be getting 5 more targets than Darnell Mooney, who may have just who caught one pass at the beginning of the game and then just disappeared. That was troubling. And even though Pitts had a better day, the usage of Pitts was so weird. Like, when we talk about some of the rookie mistakes from Robinson, it seemed like Zac Robinson was not as familiar with some of these players either. Like, we talk about Kirk not having played with anybody. Robinson's never coached with anyone. Robinson's never experienced Caleb McGarry.
He looked at last year's PFF grade and was like, oh, he's great. We're fine. Yeah.
I don't know if Ledford was in the building being like, no, don't worry. It's going to be okay. Caleb has his moments or whatever. But that was a classic Caleb McGarry game. People are, they want to pull and put Storm in. They're ready to say this is just Caleb. Caleb is Caleb. He's going to have 5 more of these this year, that he's going to have like 10, 11 games where he's not even a problem. In fact, he completely stonewalled TJ Watt on the touchdown pass.
He pancaked him a couple times. It's just like,
mysterious.
That's Caleb, man.
Mysterious guy. And that's just how it's always going to be.
Yep.
But you signed Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner is your chipping tight end. Pitts does not help. If anything, Pitts got in the way on a couple of reps due to his inability to actually put any kind of pressure or force onto TJ Watt. It actually just ended up making it harder for Caleb to reach TJ when he came around the edge, and it led to one of the sacks. So he stuck with Pitts as the chip man. He didn't really give Caleb a chip consistently until the second half. And then by doing that, we're now saying Kyle Pitts is a dump off for the rest of this game. And that's what he became. Pitts was unable to get involved. His only other memorable moment was the 8-yard gain after the screen pass backed up against the red zone. And that was one of the better calls from Robinson all day. He actually used London and Mooney to clear out that space for Pitts. And it was what the second down play call should have been. But
yep.
We've now reduced Pitts to chipping underneath tight end in moments where we need extra pass protection. That's bad coaching.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts, there's a lot of discussion about, well, he's really just an average receiver. He's really just, this, that, or the other. He is the second or third best receiver on this team. I'm not worried about where he lines up. I'm not worried about where he lines up in the grand scheme of the league. We're looking at this team. Kyle Pitts needs to be a receiver. Kyle Pitts needs to be out there either in the slot or running his routes primarily if he's in line without having to do much chip duty. By doing that, you're really just cutting yourself off at the knees, and you're making everything that much harder because now Kirk's lost an option, and there goes Ray McCloud getting 3 more targets, gaining, like I said, he had a great single drive, 46 yards. Outside of that, you were really just, it was super inefficient going his way, and the offense wasn't able to drive anything through him or down the field. So, there's just a lot of things that went on yesterday that, Kirk definitely contributed to, but that I think Zac Robinson contributed to even more so.
Yeah, no, I think, the question of how concerned Falcons should be about Kirk Cousins is pretty concerned, but he can get healthier. Like, that is, this is a quick turnaround for an Achilles injury. There's no doubt about it. Like, this is quick. It really hasn't been done before. So, that's another topic. But, like, Zac Robinson calling a kindergarten offense is probably the more concerning thing because, first of all, like, if Kirk is so injured, like, so sluggish coming off that Achilles that you have to call this kindergarten offense, he shouldn't be playing. Like, this is like an offense with a hand tied behind your back. You're not beating any legitimate defense calling this type of offense. It's incredibly predictable. You have no deep passing game, so they're just going to sit on the routes. They're going to sit on the routes and stuff the box, and that's exactly what they did. And to Bijan and the run game's credit, they still managed to have like a solid game despite all that. But like, no play action. Like, the run game's working and you're not using any play action. It's like, okay, so I guess we're just going to throw that in the dumpster. Like, you can't call this offense again. Like, this is not a recipe for success. I don't even think this would work in college against the better defenses because those defenses would figure it out. It took the Steelers 2 quarters to figure this out. Like, the second half, outside of that one drive that the Falcons shot themselves in the foot on, there was no more offensive movement the entire game after that drive. And the Steelers could sit on it. I mean, you saw TJ Watt knew the snap count. He knew it so well. There was they were lucky that was ruled offsides because it was close. Yeah, it was close enough that it might, like, a different official might have not called that. So, like, that's how obvious the snap count was. You can't have that in the NFL. And, like you said, like, Charlie Werner had a fantastic game. He had a 90 run block grade, according to PFF, on just 16 run blocking snaps. He did not pass block on a single snap. He had 0 pass blocking snaps. Now, maybe he's just a better run blocker, and maybe that's the case, but, like, he's definitely a better pass blocker than Kyle Pitts. I can guarantee you that. I mean, Drake London's probably a better pass blocker. Tyler Allgeier's a better pass blocker. Put him out there, for God's sake. Do something. Like, it's just, and even Bijan, to his credit, Bijan had a great game in pass pro. Much better than last year. Yeah, and like
I was a little nervous.
Yeah, and like he was
so much. I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
But he really stepped up because both of us, I think we talked about that in the preview. We were like, "There's no way they asked Bijan to block him."
Yeah, and he did good. Good for him.
He did good. He did good.
It's like, and like he was a good pass blocker in college. So I was like, probably just like, that step up to the NFL talent is tough for running backs. Obviously, all but the best ones. But like, I'm glad Bijan had a good game in pass pro. He didn't really have any good games in pass pro last year, so that's actually really good long term for Bijan to be that dominant snap running back, which he absolutely was. Everyone worried about Tyler Allgeier stealing Bijan snaps. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. But maybe, I mean, there's probably an argument that Tyler Allgeier could have gotten a couple more carries, but but it didn't matter, obviously, in the end. But like, I don't know, like, I thought this was going to be this was going to be a 12 personnel offense disguised as like an 11 personnel offense, essentially. I think we all got on board with that. It seemed like the halftime adjustment was to take Charlie Werner off the field, make Pitts chip, and then put in Ray McCloud. And I think that was the stupidest thing you could have done. Like, I don't know why you thought, like, I mean, to Ray's credit, like, he did have some good plays, but it's like, he doesn't offer anything as a blocker. And I don't think Ray McLeod's a better receiving option for you than Kyle Pitts is. And if you want Pitts to just chip, you might as well just take him off the field and put Werner in. Like, I mean, it's nice that Pitts played like 96% of snaps. He never did that his entire career under Arthur Smith. Pitts, like, that was the one thing you could take away. London, Bijan, Pitts, these guys dominated the snap counts. This is what we wanted from Arthur Smith, right? He never did it. The first game, Zac Robinson did it. Great. That's just step one. We need to actually utilize them in the right way, not just have them on the field. But, that's, baby steps here. The Charlie Werner usage, yeah. I mean, to me, I think that's extremely concerning because this is your blocking tight end. I don't know, like, if you need more protection, why are you taking your blocking tight end off the field to bring in another receiver? Like, it wasn't like, oh, we don't have enough weapons. It was the pass rush is getting in Cousins' lap within like a second and a half. So I don't know why the decision was to take the extra blocker off the field to add another receiving threat. Like, I'm guessing the idea was, oh, if we get another receiver out there, maybe that's another outlet for Kirk quicker. But, like, you don't need to do that. Like, sometimes you just got to max protect. Sometimes you got to have an extra blocker in, and you just have to get it done and hope that your receivers find space. But it's like, I feel like the combination of they didn't go max protect, and they didn't do anything deep. And the Steelers figured out pretty quick, we don't have to sit back at all. They would just have Minkah charge at the line of scrimmage every snap.
Yeah,
because they would no fear.
Yesterday.
Yeah, no fear of the deep ball. And, like, you can't be a successful NFL offense if you can't threaten deep. It's just, that's the way it is. So they're like, we're not going to threaten deep, we're not going to run play action, and we're not going to chip TJ Watt. That's how you get 10 points, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you get 10 points in a game. So.
And it seems like he really just thought, I can beat the status quo. It's just one of those things where, he's younger. He's obviously, touted as this innovative guy, and, he's going to roll out, innovative solutions, and I'm going to be able to make this work. At some point, you have to take a step back and realize the process is failing. And Robinson was unable to do that yesterday. It took him way too long to figure out that Caleb McGarry needed help. And then it was like he had one backup plan per problem. And if that backup plan didn't work, that's it. He was not prepared to go into max protect yesterday. And it makes me wonder, how often have you drilled max protection? How prepared for that situation were you? Because you have Caleb McGarry at right tackle, you're going to have to go max protect a couple of times this year. Did not seem like that was in the cards at all. And to your point about Ray, I get the thinking. Sure, we bring a receiver on, and we like that matchup. We like our wide receiver 3 versus their cornerback 4 or 5.
Yeah, they're undrafted free agent slot corner. I get it. Yeah,
but you're not yielding really any results. And hey, instead of using Ray McLeod to take advantage of that matchup,
that 5'10" slot corner,
you could just bring in the blocking tight end and let Pitt stay out there and take on that matchup. Or you could bring London inside and let him, have a shot at taking on that matchup. Or Darnell, there were options, and it seemed like I want to keep still very confused as to what we're going to see Darnell Mooney do this year after yesterday's game. But, it seems like the idea is to keep him wide, keep him as the other outside receiver. Didn't really want to do much with him. And he didn't really want to move off of his game plan at all yesterday. And unfortunately, like you said, the Steelers are like, okay, if you're just going to keep doing this every play, then we're just going to call you out on it and make you try to win these extremely difficult battles, which is Caleb McGarry holding up for 2+ seconds. And the other elephant in the room is that these receivers didn't really get open yesterday. And, a lot of that comes from the fact that, the ball wasn't really getting out super quick and the protection wasn't really holding up. But when protection did, and especially when you look at Kirk's interceptions, he's going 1, 2, 3, and then bad decision. Obviously, he can't throw the ball, but watching him go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 multiple times throughout the day, and it's like, yeah, there's that wide receiver depth really coming and kicking in now at this point. Because if London can't win his battle, or if they're doubling London and just putting a little extra help to his side, which is kind of what seemed like was going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you're relying on Pitts. Now Pitts is a blocker who's only going to run underneath routes. Any linebacker can handle that. And then you have Mooney, who just kind of seemed to be an afterthought, and was really just used for a lot of,
It
I
seemed like a
hate
lot of
saying
like
this, but a
inbreakers
lot
and
of,
yeah,
yeah,
like
inbreakers and then just pointless motion.
yeah,
Like we're doing like, it wasn't even a true orbit motion, and we're doing this like half
it
orbit
was
where
weird.
he
Yeah,
comes in and then instead of going behind, he kind of just walks in front and stands next. And then by the end of the game, he's not even selling that route. Like he's basically telling the defense, like, yeah, we are not planning or running anything off of this. And then you just start to see him jog out of it. Like he knows nothing. He knows the ball's not coming his way. He's not going to do anything. And it's just like, to see that in week one, to see some of the blocking from the wide receivers,
not good enough.
mm,
Yeah,
mm. Man, they a lot of people called for this. They're like, I can't wait to see Drake London get motioned inside and go and do some of these blocks that Puka and Cooper and then we're doing last year. They did that I think I counted 3 or 4 times. I think London had 1 win.
yep.
He whiffed completely on one, or it looked like an assignment error. Either McGarry came too hard outside and didn't go to his man, and then the corner was able to come over the top of him, or vice versa. But so we had a whiff. He got completely blown up on one, and he was able to push. I think it was the undrafted free agent corner. He was able to handle him and get him out of the way. And then
Great
on that
job.
screenplay down at the end zone, thank God that ball wasn't caught, because
Yeah.
it completely blew London up.
Oh yeah,
And there was
the
nothing
Steelers
that
were
was
all
going
over
to
it. Like
happen
every
on
single,
that.
every single defender on that side charged like the line of scrimmage. Like it was the most obvious screen I've ever seen. It
So
was
it's not like we
even
went
the safety
backwards.
charged. Yeah, like it was bad.
It was bad, and it was just kind of like this attitude of like, and we've seen the attitude in the building. The attitude has basically been like, we've proven we're good. It's just that the quarterback hasn't. Like, while we've been here, all of us have been playing good enough to be a playoff team. You know, we've been doing the right things. We are those guys, and we're gonna win. And confidence is great. You have to have those kinds of attitudes. But the reality is no one on this roster outside of a handful, very small handful of guys have proven that they are, you know, playoff caliber players, that they are consistently good NFL players. There's too many question marks around some of these guys. And yesterday it kind of looked like they thought that they had already, you know, done that. It was going to be easy. You know, this game, it didn't seem like they came out with the mindset of like, this is going to be a dogfight. And man, the Steelers were getting up after like every play and just ready to punk the Falcons. There were so many shoving matches happening after the fact. And it's just like, geez, you know, this used to be the kind of game where it's like, you know what, you know for sure that there's going to be some punches thrown back, and it just didn't really seem like it. It
No,
seemed like
no.
they were all caught off guard. It seemed
Yeah.
like they got super deflated, that they weren't, you know, putting up 25 in the first half, and they rolled out in the second half. They did not want to be there anymore.
No, after that drive crumbled on that, like after that Dwelly thing, that team quit. Like the offense. I'm sorry.
The
Like
offense was done.
yeah, they were
Which
done.
is a shame, because we haven't talked about them, but the defense once again,
the defense,
played
goddamn, help these men
win.
out. Yeah. The defense, like, I mean, look, I was harsh on him, especially Terrell, because he just got the bag. Like, I need you to do a little better than that. But, like, even with that, even with George Pickens punking Terrell like every other play, like, they still gave up less than 100 yards to George Pickens, and they gave up like 160 passing yards total or something. Like, that's good. Great job. They held Justin Fields under 4 yards a carry. That's great. They held Najee Harris under 4 yards a carry. Great job. Like, that's a tough run game, especially with Justin Fields at quarterback. And, like, they got 2 sacks. I mean, I think a lot of fans, like, wanted more pressure. And, like, the thing with that team with Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson is you can't just rush the passer against Justin Fields. Like, it's a different scenario. And like, you're never going to get this. Like, the Falcons want to sim pressure. They want to blitz. They want to do, you can't really do that against Justin Fields. So like, the level of pressure was always going to be less just because you have to just respect Justin Fields' ability to escape the pocket and run. And like, you saw it happen. Grady Jarrett, they tried to stunt with Grady Jarrett. That lane got vacated for a moment and Justin Fields was gone. 3rd and 12 conversion or whatever it was. So like, just keep in mind like that, folks, like that's part of the reason why they were less like relentless in terms of their pressure scheme. But like, I thought they had overall, like, I mean, the pressure was solid. I mean, I think there was only 8 total pressures, but they did get, I guess, somebody was credited him with 3 sacks total. PFF gave him 3. I thought it was just 2, but maybe it was 3.
I thought it was 2. I thought
they gave Jarrett
Grady
2.
and then Grady and Jude on.
I guess maybe they're giving, maybe one of the Justin Fields scrambles actually was a sack because he went down behind the line of scrimmage. That's
an
my
adjustment.
Guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It looks like they have Grady with 2. Shout out Grady Jarrett, by the way. Hell of a return.
Oh.
He was like the opposite of Kirk Cousins coming off like a major knee injury.
Literally night and day. You would talk about somebody that's healthy and all the way back from their injury, like Grady Jarrett, man. And that was pre-2023 Grady too, to be clear. Like, that was a guy that we were really hoping to see because, before the injury, it was all right. It was like, okay. That was the guy yesterday. That was the captain that we've all come, to love and celebrate here. But like you said, with the defense, I mean, you haven't even talked about it yet, Kevin, but how about those linebackers?
Hell yeah, man. That Nate Landman jumping over the pile to stuff the 4th and 1, that was some hero shit. Like, I was like, yeah.
With the Steelers in the building. It was an amazing play. Anderson looked so much better.
Yes.
There's little things
he was
to clean
grinding
up in the run game.
Yep.
There's going to be little things to clean up, but it just looked like mentally he was in such a better place. He was reacting faster. And as the game went on, he really started to show that athletic ability. I think there was a long swing pass, or it was either a long swing pass or a drag route that came across the field that he hawked down, and what would have normally been like a 5 or 7 yard gain became like a 2 or 3 yard gain.
Yeah.
And it's just like the little things, watching him have those positive reps, watching him being able to build and keep going is only going to help this defense. And by the end of it, we saw a lot of Nate and Troy together at inside, which is what a lot of people thought the vision would be. Like, so much was, getting tied into who's starting, who's this. All 3 of those guys started yesterday. All 3 of those guys were put into, the exact position they needed to be in. We're out there, in the best possible, situation. And I do want to credit Raheem and Lake for that, because it's taken a while to kind of figure out, how is this going to work? Can we get Anderson up to speed? Can we be this 3 linebacker rotation? And, that's a game that was going to be especially tough on them because, you had the tight end, Pat Freiermuth was going to be a big focus. He was targeted 4 times, 4 catches for like 28 yards or something like that. They kept everything in front of him, like, okay, fine. I'll let him catch all of his passes for 6 yards a piece. Like, I can live with the dink and dunk ball if the linebackers are stopping him on the spot. The running backs were held in check for the most part. So that was a game that was really going to test them, and was really going to show us, hey, is this Falcons run defense, was 2023, was it just luck? Was it a fluke? Or are they going to be able to carry it over? And it looked like it carried over very well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the defense deserves so much credit for this. Half the Steelers' points came off turnovers. I mean, like, they allowed 9 points not off turnovers, 9 points off turnovers. Like, they were out there for 70 snaps almost. Like, Nate Landman looked great. Troy Anderson, I said he's the biggest wild card, and if he can play like this, like, then I think his role is only going to grow as the season goes on. And like, I think Troy Anderson, like, being legit in this game, they were able to line Caden Ellis up at edge. Like, he did play some at edge. That was kind of cool to see. And like, when Caden Ellis is like the lowest graded of your 3 linebackers, he still had a decent grade. Like, no, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, that's a good problem to have. Like, when Troy and Nate Landman are your top 2 guys, like, people were worried about this linebacker core, but I was like, no, this is a strength. Like, trust me. And like, Justin Simmons too, like, great first game for him. So yeah, I mean, Judon too. Definitely like you could tell he was like they didn't want to do a whole lot with him yet. Like he didn't do any like crazy shit. They didn't do any like stunts or anything like that. But like good run defender. Had that critical sack. It should have been critical. Unfortunately, the Falcons didn't really make that happen. But Mike Hughes with the 90 run defense grade.
Hey man,
he came to play. Yeah.
Hughes was the best outside quarterback on the team yesterday, and those are just the facts.
Yep, that's the rules.
Just
yeah,
the facts.
Yeah. No, I mean honestly, like Hughes didn't look bad. So I mean he's gonna get a much bigger test next week. Hughes got to go against Van Jefferson. So
no, but I mean, Kevin, you made a good point again because, and I thought about this. I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit more worried about playing Fields than Wilson, but honestly, the last time we played Fields, we like gave him the ball 4 times, and he was still not really that impressive, and so I don't really see that happening again. And we gave Fields the ball 3 times, so I was technically correct. But it turns out giving him the ball 3 times is still too many times, and the defense being able to consistently overcome this offense, putting them at midfield and other terrible, situations, and the worst outcome being a field goal is something that I think is becoming underrated. Yes, there were things that need to get worked out. The defense didn't play a perfect game yesterday, but they're hardly ever going to play a perfect game. All that matters is, did they play well enough to win? And they did. The other team's offense never scored a touchdown. That should end in a winning result majority of the time. But unfortunately, we just kept giving them the ball, and we gave them too many opportunities. And you can only stop so many 50-yard plus field goals, which Arthur Smith, he's going to take those anytime.
He's going to take those. Yep.
It was so funny hearing the announcers. I wonder if the Steelers are going to roll out the kick. I'm like, oh, they're
doing it. Yeah, trust me. Yeah.
I'm like, if it is 56 and in, you can bet that Boswell is going to be running out there because Art does not care. He will dink and dunk, and he will take field goals all day. And he had the benefit of leaning on what will be an elite Steelers defense. Like, I don't want that to get lost in all this. That is going to most likely be a top 10 defense, probably top 5 in pass rush specifically. And Art knew he could lean on it. And, kudos to him. Came back, called a horrendous game, called a offense that was absolutely disgusting, and reminded me of watching watching all of the Arthur Smith regime Falcons, and they pulled out the dub.
There you go.
The man did his thing, and unfortunately,
They played the exact game. They let the Steelers run the ball like 43 times or something. Like, I mean, you're not winning any games like that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, this is Arthur Smith's wet dream. Like 18-10, running the ball like 43 times. Like, it's just, that's how this goes. If you're gonna let the Steelers play that game, they'll beat you every time. You can't beat them at their own game.
No, their opening drive was hilarious. I was like, that was the Falcons. Like, we somehow went forward, and it felt terrible the entire time, and we ended with 3 points. But it worked.
Yeah. Oh man, it did. It's sad, but and we're getting the news now that Raheem Morris says Kirk Cousins is healthy. It's not, and the play calling had nothing to do with his health.
Okay.
I don't believe you.
I'm gonna let Raheem say that. That's fine. Then that just means one thing. Zac Robinson, you've now been called out by your head coach.
Yep. So officially, the blame has been placed at the feet of Zac. I mean, Raheem Morris deserves blame too.
That cone.
Raheem Morris deserves blame too. He signed off on this shit. Like, I guarantee you, he looked at this game plan and was like, "Yeah, that seems good. That seems fine. Let's do that." Yeah. So I mean, I'm not giving Raheem a pass. Like, I mean, if he thought that was an acceptable game plan, then we're in big trouble. Like, if he thought that was a good idea, I don't really know what else to say about that. But yeah, it's concerning to say the least. And I think Falcons fans should be concerned about Kirk Cousins. I think Falcons fans should be concerned about Zac Robinson. I don't think we have to be concerned about the defense. I feel pretty good. Like, I was expecting, honestly, like, more rust from the defense because it's new scheme, new players, all this. But they played, like, honestly, they played, like, about as well. Or, like, I think, like, factoring in the turnovers, it's hard to do it live, right? Because you're like, you watch that before the half pass and you're like, wow, this pass defense is really playing terribly. And you know, you add it all together, you rewatch it, you factor in the turnovers, you're like, okay, they actually played a good game. Like, you can't expect your defense, like, -3 turnover margin, you let up less than 20 points. It's a pretty heroic effort. Now, this is not a good offense they went against, but, you know, a lot tougher test next week. But I think this defense, they did a good job. They deserve their flowers. So defense, thumbs up. You guys are good. No, you know, I retract my heavy criticisms from the pre-halftime bomb that was allowed. You know, I'll allow that one. We'll let that go. I just hope the defense doesn't have to carry this team again. Like, it's crazy to hear it, to say that like, wow, we're going to have that. Everyone thought the defense was going to be the problem. And once again, the defense is not the problem. It's the offense. So, it's disappointing. But also kind of interesting. Falcons played just 16 players on offense. Very different from the Art Smith years where we have like a crap ton of just random people getting snaps. Nope. Falcons played 16 total players on offense. In comparison, the Falcons played 20 players on defense, which is a little bit more normal. Still not that many, but yeah. So, you know, interesting stuff there. But yeah, I mean, Zac Robinson's got a lot of work to do, because it doesn't get any easier next week. It does not.
It doesn't. And I think your note there about the 16 players, what stands out the most is that for all of the talk, it is evidently clear that they do not feel good about anybody in this wide receiver room after Ray McCloud.
Yeah.
And they really don't have anybody but themselves to be upset about for that reason. And, you know, this is kind of some of those things that we talked about before the season where, hey, we want to be optimistic, but we really need to recognize that, like, regardless of all the camp hype, regardless of what we're seeing in some of these games against, you know, guys that may be cut or guys who are going to be into the roster, this is not a good wide receiver room. This isn't one that you should rest your hat on and feel like, hey, you know, we're set here. And if the plan is to not really then kind of use Pitts to supplement that, I don't really know what they're going to do moving forward throughout this season, because it's very clear that what they have right now isn't good enough. And the Eagles secondary, I might even be a little bit more worried about it than the defensive line coming into this game, to be honest with you, because if that game plan carries over, coverage sacks all day.
Yeah.
Coverage stacks all day. They're not going to have to do much. And the Eagles don't like to really blitz, or historically haven't really liked to blitz that much anyway. So you're going to be challenged to win your matchups. And I just am worried that we don't have enough guys that can consistently win theirs.
Yeah, no, that is a big concern. And I just can't believe that, like, we're doing this with Pitts again. Like, just take the tight end off his goddamn name. Put wide receiver on it. If that'll stop people from treating him like a tight end, like, then great. Because, like, it's time to stop. Like, stop trying to make him block. Just stop it. Like, what is everyone's obsession with taking a 6'6" absolute freak athlete and trying to make him chip block and do all this it's just so stupid. Like, I thought we got out of this when Arthur Smith left, but no, it's like, actually, you know, we're going to make Pitts chip TJ Watt. So all he can do is run little dump offs and inside crossers and crap like that. Like, no, you have to have him as a primary receiving target. You don't have the wide receiver depth to do anything else. So yeah, I mean, like you said at the top of the show, like, maybe the bigger concern isn't Kirk Cousins, it's Zac Robinson. Because if this is his plan, he's going to be fired at the end of this year. This is not going to work. So obviously, rookie OC, first game, a lot of time to go, a lot of opportunities to make changes, but this is not going to work in the NFL. It didn't even work for more than a half. So if you think you can just go out there and run pistol and shotgun and not use any play action and, like, I don't know like what anyone, including Raheem Morris, is thinking if they thought this was like a legitimate offensive game plan, because it's not. So um, I'm not, an NFL offensive coach, so maybe I shouldn't throw too many stones. But hey, like if all these people can tell you what the Falcons are going to do, if TJ Watt is jumping your snap count starting in the third quarter because of how obvious it is, like, I mean, this doesn't take it doesn't take an offensive genius to figure out these issues. So, you're going to have to do something better. And because they lost this game, this is an 0-3 team. I don't think they're winning either the next two games. It's not to say they can't look better in those games and give those two teams a game. I certainly think they can, but like, it's not realistic to expect a win the next 2 weeks. So you're going to be 0-3 going up against the Saints team that they did put the hurt on Carolina. I think Carolina might be a college team. Like, I think that team might go 0-16. So I don't know that I would be doing too many victory laps if I was a Saints fan after that. But we'll have to see how they look in week 4. They have to play some real teams before week 4. But man, the Panthers look so damn bad. Like, Carolina, as bad as the Falcons looked, it was like the Panthers are in their own league in terms of badness. It is absolutely crazy.
Carolina has hired the best head coach option 3 out of the last 4 years now. So yeah, hard to really hang your hat on that win. And I mean, unfortunately for us, the Saints will be coming with a little bit of juice. They got a couple of teams to see before they get to us, but you really don't want to roll into that game feeling like you can't beat anybody. And, like you said, I wasn't really confident. This was kind of like, I'm like, all right, guys, get this dub, handle those 2 losses like men, move on and get ready for the season. And now it's like, oh, okay. Try not to freak out. You're probably going to be 0-3, but don't worry. You're going to be one of the first teams ever to start 0-3 and then make the playoffs at the end of the, because, then you start playing the statistical anomaly game. And now you start looking at the numbers. Nobody wants to be looking at playoff odds after the 4th game and realizing that, hey, statistically, we're going to have to do something next to impossible to make it into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things like too, where the 17th game like adds a little bit of like wiggle room to those stats because it's an extra game and all that. But yeah, like 0-3 is still a terrible place to be. The thing for the Falcons and what will probably boost them in most stats is that the last 6 games are pretty easy. So you might be able to stack up some dubs like at the end of the year. But like still, you can't really afford, like, if you start 0-3, you can't really afford too many more scuffles. Like, you're gonna have to win the remaining winnable games on your schedule to get a winning record and get out of here. But if the offense looks like this, we're not going to be talking about the playoffs for much longer. So we're
going to be talking about something else.
Yeah, it's gonna be draft takes after week 3. Here we go. Please no.
I don't even know if we have to linger into the draft. We might just have to look down around the bench area and see if there's any other conversations to be had.
Is there a potential franchise savior in the building? Anyone? Please stand up. Yeah. Yep.
I will say this: it is very funny to always watch a quarterback have a game like that, and then in the middle of it, see somebody say, "Yeah, they should put Penix in now." And I'm like, yeah, let's just go ahead and put the future out there behind McGarry, who's playing out of his mind right now. That seems like the best way to move forward. Like, guys, can't stress this enough. The thing that made me believe that Penix was sitting this year was the fact that Caleb McGarry's contract is not something we can escape from until next season.
Yeah.
And after last night, if you're Raheem Morris, you're sitting up and thinking, "There's no way we can put Penix
we can't put him out there." Yeah.
Like,
no, it's terrifying.
Kirk, we love you. We don't want you to die, but we can't.
We really don't want Penix to die.
We really don't want Penix to get hurt either. Like, you're gonna kind of have to. So I'm expecting them to let Kirk ride this out until he physically can't, unless there is some actual injury that pops up, which we are being told everything's cool. So
if this is healthy Kirk, I'm very concerned. I mean, like, I just don't believe it. I mean, you could say he's healthy in that he doesn't have to miss any practice snaps or anything like that. Like
Right?
he can
It's
technically
relative.
go play, but
Alex Smith was healthy after his leg injury.
technically, yes.
He
Technically,
technically played game. He technically got some minutes.
yep,
All it means is that they can pass the NFL's physical requirement.
yep. He can pass his physical. That doesn't mean he can move. He just has to pass his physical. So
An NFL physical.
yes,
I'm
which
just gonna put that out there.
yeah. So it is very concerning. I think it's even more concerning if if Cousins is 100% healthy. I think that's probably even more concerning. I don't believe it, but
That was one of my thoughts this morning. I was like, either he's so hurt they can't call it, OC is so bad he won't call it, or this is Kirk and we're all going to have to accept that this is Kirk now. And so I'm with you. And there's another quote where Raheem says he does think Kirk was knocking off Russ. So we are hearing a little bit of, coach speak on this one where, yes, he's healthy, but he was definitely knocking off some rust. Okay, well, how long is the rust going to be on? Is the rust gone? Did he get it all knocked off? It seems like TJ knocked some of it off. I don't know if Kirk was handing out those thank yous like he said he would be. I went back and watched the tape, but I didn't see him go over and say anything too many times.
Yeah, no. I mean, I hope it's knocking off rust. That would be the easiest explanation and the one that would be the easiest to fix. I just don't believe it. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I guess it would mean that I guess that Zac Robinson is like a total coward or something. Like, yeah, we're not even like, I know you're fine, Kirk, but like, we're just not going to ask you to do any play action or anything else. We just won't ask it. Like, I'm sure you're fine, but we just won't do that. Like for reasons. We just won't take advantage of our run game and try to get any benefit whatsoever from it in the passing game because we don't need to, because we're clearly just that great. I prefer the alternative that they're just covering up his limitations. For the record, because if they're not covering up his limitations and this was just the plan, then that's really bad. It's like, oh no, we're gonna have TJ Yates calling plays before too long if that's the case. So,
TJ Yates taking snaps.
Yeah, I mean,
too.
he's the fourth quarterback. So, man, yeah, it's a rough one, but Tre'Shon, good convo. Appreciate you coming on and helping to process this one. Hopefully it won't be so bad next week, but probably will be. It's the Eagles in Philly, so not getting any easier certainly over the next couple weeks. It's going to be a rough month, folks. But again, I think many of the logical among us thought that this was going to be a rough start. It's rougher than expected, but a lot of teams looked really bad this week. The Bengals lost to the Bengals lost to the Patriots. In case people didn't see that, the Bills almost lost to the Cardinals. Week one's always overreaction week, right? You always see a bunch of crazy stuff. So maybe we're overreacting. I sure hope so, because I don't want to do this again. I've done this the last 3 years and I hated it. I would really like to have some different type of shows, but unfortunately, we're just going back to the well on all the things wrong with the offense, and I'm pretty bored of that angle. I'd like to move away from that to some positivity. And we'll see if they can get there. A lot of season left, 16 more games. So, they're not, cooked at this stage, but the heat's getting turned up in the slow cooker. So, we need to turn that heat down a little bit. We don't want the roast getting done before week 10. Okay, we need to sort of spread it out a little bit more. So, guys, he's Tre'Shon Diaz at Tre'Shon on the Twitters. Tre'Shon, anything you're working on, anything you'd like to plug before we sign off?
No, nothing to plug. Just keep tuning in to the Falcoholic. Keep looking at all the stuff that we're putting out there for you guys. We're sifting through it so you don't have to. That's
in the hazmat suit, yeah. Down there, just oh god, I don't like looking at this. Yep. So, great stuff. Definitely check out thefalcoholic.com, guys. We got lots of written stuff coming out, breaking down this game as the week goes on. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Follow me there as well. Please subscribe. Those really help us out. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. Check out the community Discord. Check out the channel memberships if you want to support the show. Check out the Patreon if you're wanting to support the podcast. That's where you get more of the podcast stuff. And yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday. We have had Mark Ramundi. He's had to bow out, unfortunately, but he will be back very soon. We're going to reschedule. So we're going to have Joe Patrick on, friend of the show, instead on Wednesday for show number 300. So we may delay our 300th episode festivities because Adnan's not going to be back. I don't know. He's off gallivanting somewhere. But we will have some fun stuff for the approximately 300th show. So you guys can look forward to that. But until then, guys, thank you so much for tuning into Dirty Birds and Brews. Thanks again to our sponsor, Bet Online. And shout out to Tre'Shon for a great episode today. We'll be back, like I said, on Wednesday, and then we'll have game preview with a special Eagles guest as well coming later this week as we get geared up for Monday Night Football. The NFL is going to be real sorry they gave the Falcons these two primetime games if nothing changes. So get ready for no more primetime games again. Yeah. I don't know why they did that knowing Kirk was coming off the Achilles. I think that was a very bad plan on the NFL's part, because there was a decent chance that he was not going to be healthy. But
they're who's going to be our 2022 Broncos?
Who are we going to destroy immediately? And yeah, we drew that short straw, sadly. So, but yeah, guys, we'll see you next time on Dirty Birds and Brews and Falcon Live. Until then, have a great day, folks. Thanks.